This is Big Podcast.
It's Build a Big Podcast, your marketing podcast. Is it your marketing podcast? The marketing podcast for podcasters. It can also be yours. I'll let you join in with me. This is the podcast if you want to grow your podcast, get a bigger audience, make the audience care about your message, get the audience to spend money with you. Basically, make impact, make a difference with your message. We're going to cover all of those things. I'm David Hooper. BigPodcast.com is the site. This is the URL to follow along. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Don't write it down. I'm going to say it enough to where you will never forget it. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. All right, let's go. Here's what's in this issue. Your number one job as a podcaster. Bad words for describing podcasts and your podcast content. 3 tips for sounding better on your podcast. Pod Indy. This is a podcasting conference coming up in Indianapolis. AI podcast jingle creation. Also some classified ads, things that I think will help you to do what this podcast is about, which is grow your podcast, get more people to care about your podcast, spread your message, make impact with your message, and make money from your podcast. This episode brought to you by Riverside.fm, the leading platform to record studio quality remote podcast and video. Riverside records locally on each participant's computer and uploads to the cloud. That means you get the highest quality audio and, if you use it, video. They've got unbelievably high recording quality regardless of you or your guest internet connection. Maybe the best thing about it is it's very intuitive and easy to use. Easy on you, easy on your guest. Nobody needs any special equipment, nothing to install. You simply send a link. It opens up the Chrome browser. Your guests join the Riverside studio, just like opening up a web page. You want to try it? You can try it for free. Here's the URL, riverside.fm. They'll give you a couple of hours, kick the tires, look under the hood, do an interview or two. It's free. A couple hours will let you check it out. If it's for you, here's the discount code. Again, it's riverside.fm, the discount code. This gets you 15% off a paid plan. It's Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. Again, the URL to try it free, riverside.fm. If you want that paid plan, get the discount code, Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. In this episode, I'm going from story to story to story to story, and I do this like an old school children's audio book. In between stories, you're going to hear this sound. That's how you know it's time to turn the page. If you're following along at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, that's where all the links are. You ready? Here we go. Your number one job as a podcaster. I got into radio because of my work in the music business, which for a few years was running a record label. I was in my 20s, very passionate about music. And I made the assumption that everybody felt that way. That assumption was wrong. Needless to say, I got kicked in the teeth more than a few times when it came to releasing albums and promoting live shows. There were definitely days when it felt like nobody cared. When I would press a CD, the way it would work is you had to get 1,000. That was the minimum run. And they would do a 10% overrun in case there were any problems. So you're going to end up with possibly 1,100 CDs. And I did often. That is a lot. And there were more than a few releases that I had where I might have had 800 left after a couple months, 3 or 4 months. If you don't think that 1,000 people is a lot on your social media, on your email list, on your podcast subscription numbers, try to sell 1,000 of a physical product. Try to get 1,000 people into the room with you at the same time. It's not easy. You got to be a little bit crazy to do it. You got to learn the lessons of what it takes to actually do it. And in between those times, there's a moment for you, maybe a longer moment than you'd want, where it feels like you get punched in the face. I remember one time going from record store to record store to record store, trying to get these guys to stock my album. If you're of a certain age, you'll probably remember going into record stores. There was always that guy behind the counter. He's just too cool for everybody. It's like, yeah, I like the first album, that kind of guy. This guy took the album, he puts it on the store stereo, because every record store had one. And he's like, yeah, man, it's not that good. And I'm sitting there with a box of them, like, okay. On to the next store. You got to get real good at rejection. You're not going to be for everybody. I talk about that here all the time. But when you actually have to see it in person from the guy who's like, yeah, I like the first album, then it's really tough. This is the big lesson that I talked about, what I learned from being ignored. This is going to help you with your podcast. Not everybody is going to care what you do, but people are watching you. And if you keep showing up, a lot of those people will eventually join you. Not everybody, but enough people to make it worth your while. That is your job. When I talk about your number one job as a podcaster, that is it. Your job is to show up, then keep showing up. And when you do that, the rest falls into place. One of the things I do remember about that specific experience is there was some guy browsing records. He came up to me and goes, "Hey man, tell me about that." I mean, he was really interested in it. He didn't buy one from me. I don't think I even thought to sell him, but he was interested. That guy, maybe, had I not been fighting back tears and trying to keep it together, I might have had an opportunity with him. And I think I would have had I kept showing up. Your job as a podcaster, it is not to convince people or otherwise force them to like what you do. If I wanted to, for the print version of this newsletter, the email version, newsletter.bigpodcast.com, I could buy a list of podcasters and subscribe everybody to it. I could go through Apple Podcasts, look at RSS feeds, take those emails and subscribe everybody to it. But I'm not doing that. My job is not to force people to like what I do. My job is not to shortcut that process. My job is to keep showing up, hopefully get people like you to tell a couple of friends, "Hey man, you got a podcast? You got to check out Build a Big Podcast." And if that works for you, if you could do that, that would be very nice, by the way, because that is my job. My job is to show up, hopefully connect with you, hopefully do something that would encourage you to share this with other people, hopefully do something where people will see me showing up and they like it and they come on, or if they don't like it, I eventually win them over. That's it. And the same thing for you. Do your thing and invite other people to come along. By the way, if you want help doing this, if you want a supportive group that understands what it's like to get kicked in the teeth, I've got a group. It's called Big Podcast AMP. It's a group coaching program. AMP stands for Audio Monetization Program. So if you want to make more money with your podcast, get more listeners, make impact, this is where to go for more information. bigpodcast.com/AMP. Again, AMP, Audio Monetization Program. bigpodcast.com/AMP. Bad words for describing podcasts and your podcast content. I've got an article for you with the full list. It's linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. It was written with products in mind, but everything that he mentions applies to podcast as well. Think about these words: fast, quick, easy, effortless, modern, best, top, simple, powerful, beautiful, flexible. We're the best podcast on fitness, the top podcast on fitness. Simple, easy ways to blank, blank, blank. What do those words even mean, though? Not much. Especially since everybody is using them. It's like my senator. That's socialism. She didn't even know what it means. Or freedom or patriot. You know, we see this in politics all the time. Start throwing these things around. It's like, what does that even mean? Explain what it is that you're trying to do. Maybe we'll come along with you. Let me give you a common sales technique. It's known as FAB. It stands for feature, application, sometimes advantages, benefit. Feature, application, benefit. Rather than using well-worn adjectives to describe your podcast, consider the FAB model to explain what you do and why it matters. I'll give you an example. Short episodes, that's a feature. Who cares? Who cares? Only the people understand the A and B, the application and benefit part of this, how to use those short episodes and how they'll be helpful. For example, if you've got short episodes, why are they great? I'll tell you why. You can listen to them on a short commute. You can turn dead time into something productive and helpful. That's a much better way of saying short episodes. Feature, application, benefit. What's good about your podcast? Don't just tell me the feature. Tell me why. Let me take it out of podcast. In a car, for example, the windows roll up. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Unless your car's on fire, you need to jump out the window. Unless you're at the Taco Bell drive-thru, you need a burrito sent through that window. Then it comes in handy. Think about it. Feature, application, benefit. It's a great way to describe your podcast, get more listeners, get people engaged in your podcast. I've got more information. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. 3 tips for sounding better on your podcast. I used to take singing lessons from an opera singer. Not that I like opera, but because I knew it would help me be a better rock singer. I've got a video of Jessica Hansen. It's linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. She's an actress, director, voiceover artist, and vocal coach. She shares 3 common problems with vocal delivery and teaches helpful exercises to improve vocal energy and breath support. Do you have vocal fry? Do you sound scripted? You're going to be helped by this. If you got low vocal energy, for example, that's poor breath support. Here's an exercise. I'm going to do it. You want to do it with me? Are you sure? Pretend to be different kinds of dogs to open up the rib cage and focus on breath support. Like, whoo, whoo, whoo. Pretend to be different kinds of dogs to open up the rib cage and focus on breath support. Sounds crazy, but it works. And it's no more crazy than me singing opera. I'm not going to do that for you here. I've got information on this, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Number 2 problem, breath control. Here's an exercise. Hold a finger and pretend it's a birthday candle. Try to blow out the flame in 5 equal breaths to improve breath control. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to breathe into my mic like that. This is one of the things that you'll see if you go into a rehab center. You certainly see singers doing this. It's very common. It's very helpful. Breath control is what allows you to have a sentence, and you come in on that sentence and you keep that power until the very end of the sentence. You don't have to and then finish the sentence off or trail away at the end. That happens a lot. Used to happen with me all the time. I didn't know that I was doing it. This is an advantage of you having an engineer or a producer, somebody on the line with you, in the room with you, that says, hey man, you're trailing off. Or people come in strong and then they fade away like this. You don't want to do that. You want to come in strong, of course, not too strong, but that comes to breath control. You want to come in at just the right energy and keep that energy up until the very last word of the sentence. This is going to help you. Hold up a finger, pretend it's a birthday candle, try to blow out the flame in 5 equal breaths to improve breath control. Again, I've got it linked to newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Let's talk about problem number 3, vocal fry. This is not physically harmful to the health of your voice, but it can be grating to some listeners. More women than men have vocal fry issues. And the reason that this happens, because culturally, hey, don't shoot the messenger, people listen to men more than women. Men have lower voices than women. So one of the things that people with higher voices have done is they are lowering their voice by having different kinds of breath control and getting like this, vocal fry. It's grating to some listeners. Again, it's not physically harmful to the health of your voice, but if you want to work on it, this is what to do. Perform a trill by trilling the lips with the deep supportive breath to keep the voice forward and avoid strain. This is another common vocal exercise. You see this with voiceover guys. You see this with singer. Hey, you said you were going to do this with me. Perform a lip trill by trilling the lips with a deep supportive breath to keep the voice forward and avoid strain. I've got it written down for you, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Problem number 4, sounding scripted. Sounding scripted can be improved by imagining a specific person in the audience and adopting their tone. I love this. This is a lot of fun. You're going to maybe want to go somewhere where there are not people around. Record yourself. Do it. Make it count. But you can always erase the tape. This is the exercise to work on that. Read a story in different styles, such as a cowboy, a toddler having a tantrum, or an opera singer trying to find new places for the voice to go. Maybe be a radio guy. Turn it up and rip the knob off. Or ditch the radio guy voice and talk into the mic like you'd talk with a friend. To build a strong presence for audio storytelling, you should practice a daily warm-up routine that involves body, breath, and voice. I also recommend starting a podcast using what I call the Sausage Factory formula to get you behind the mic and working on these things, delivery, energy, and transitions. I've got all of this linked. Where? You know where. Come on. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Pod Indy in Indianapolis. Say that 5 times. November 4th, Pod Indy is a one-day podcast training and networking event for independent podcasters. If you're near Indianapolis, this is a great way to connect with other podcasters in the area. As big podcasting events focus more and more on corporate podcasting rather than indies, it is my hope that we're going to see more of these regional events. Pod Indy is one of those. If you want to see more of them, we've got to support these regional events. If you're in the area, I want you to check it out. Pod Indy is Podindy. You're looking for a speaking gig? Well, Brad at Pod Indy, he's looking for speakers right now. There's more information, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. AI podcast jingle creation. AI Jingle Maker is an interesting, that's what I'm going to call it, tool that you might find helpful for a tag or other audio imaging for your podcast. Here's what I like about it. It's inexpensive. You can get a tag, an audio image for about $1. It's quick. It's easy. The quality of voices, again, AI, this isn't a real person. This is an AI voice. Pretty good. Quality of sound effects, pretty good. Let's take a listen. This is the raw voice that they gave me.
This is Big Podcast.
Not bad, right? And here's what happens when they put it all together.
This is Big Podcast.
All right, that's one. You like that one? How about this one?
This is Big Podcast.
One more for you.
This is Big Podcast.
Not bad. But here's what I'd change. I'd like more options on how voice tracks are manipulated. For example, a dry option, what I played for you at the very beginning. I'd like more styles for sound effects. Most of these sound like the rip the knob off. Hey, that was great in the 80s and 90s. It's still a lot of fun to have a throwback to that if you've got that kind of show, but, not for everybody. Still, I think it's a good deal for the price. It's fun to play with. Your first one is free, so try it. If you do try it, I want you to reach out to me. I want to see what you do with it. I will play it here on Build a Big Podcast. You can reach out to me via Pebble, Blue Sky, Mastodon, any social network. I've got all the links, plus the link to AI Jingle Maker at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Classified ads for you, things that I think will help you and your podcast to grow, make more money, make more impact. Swell AI automates writing podcast summaries, articles, social posts, and more. You can manage multiple shows in one dashboard, build custom templates for each show, and it connects with Google Drive, Dropbox, and Zoom. So you don't even have to upload your podcast to Swell AI. It automates episode notes. It's going to give you a lot of content that you can use via the power of artificial intelligence. You can get started for free. I've got it linked, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. You like stickers? Who doesn't like stickers? I've got a clipboard that I'm holding. I've been using it since 2005. It's full of podcasting stickers. By the way, if you've got one, reach out to me, send me one. I'll put it on this clipboard. You don't have stickers? I've got a $10 credit for you from Sticker Mule, $10 to spend on custom stickers, magnets, buttons, and more for your podcast. The link for that, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. When you are ready, here's how I can help you even more. I mentioned it, Big Podcast AMP, audio monetization program. It is a personal coaching program that has been designed to help you do three things. Number one, grow your podcast audience. 2, get people talking about your podcast. And 3, make more money with your podcast. I've got details at newsletter.bigpodcast.com if you want to go directly. Again, this is called AMP, A-M-P, audio monetization program. You can go to bigpodcast.com/AMP. Hey, thanks for listening to Build a Big Podcast. If you want to subscribe, make sure that you never miss an episode. Coming up, I'm talking about an experience with Dolly Parton and my opportunity to interview her. Is it going to happen? I don't know yet, but it's on the schedule. I will be giving you the behind the scenes of that if you want to follow along. This is how to make sure that you never miss an episode. Go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. I make it very easy for you to subscribe, or if you want to call it follow, that's okay. I got that there too. Bigpodcast.com/subscribe. 3 buttons for you. 1 for iPhone, 1 for Android, 1 is an RSS feed. Pick your poison. I'm going to get you this podcast each and every time, free of charge. Listen as long as you want. Unsubscribe at any time. I've also got a QR code that you can use. You can scan it. The podcast is sent directly to your phone. Easy peasy. Bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Go there right now before you forget. And I will see you on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.